Right. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. As was mentioned, my name is Tim Weninger. I'm a professor at the University of Notre Dame, and I study the algorithms that are on social media. I'm a computer scientist by training. I study AI. Have been studying AI for the past 20 or so years now. I come from a tradition that's very different, and frankly, I'm a little bit nervous giving this presentation to you all. I'm an empiricist. I'm a computer scientist. I do experiments. I write papers that have data, and I have a difficult time making normative claims and normative judgments because in my tradition, empiricism, we say what the thing is, and we leave it at that. So what I want to talk about today is a little bit of how we do our work, some of the experiments that we've performed, to get at an idea of some of the problems and issues that are being raised in this space of digital networks, social media, and the human perception of quality and information. Later on, Lisa Scherg, I've talked to her, she's following me. She's going to talk about ways that we can avoid some of these problems, but I'm going to basically be the bearer of bad news. So I want to kind of start by with kind of an example. So like I said, I study humans and the algorithm and this beautiful, terrifying, elegant dance that is happening online. So I Googled, or not Googled, I went to Amazon.com and I put in a search for vacuum cleaners. I did this 2 days ago. And I put in a search for vacuum cleaners and it came up with the list of 10 results. And I think it's fascinating to find out how this list of vacuum cleaners tells us about how we perceive information and quality online. It used to be that I would go to my Walmart or Target or Tesco, you name it, and I would look through the aisles and I would pick out what was on the box. But now it's a little bit different. Of course, my eyeballs, as I'm scrolling through, I skip the first result. I suspect all of you do as well. Why do we skip the first result? Because it's sponsored, right? These two top ones here are paying money to be at the top. And that's important because our attention is gravitated towards what is on the screen. Now, after the top, there's some notion of relevance, right? And this notion of relevance, this is where the AI comes into play. This idea of Amazon wanting to make money, selling things, people wanting to get good products. And how do we do that? And how do we get good products from Amazon? Well, we can look at what other people are doing. So maybe our neighbors, maybe we look to our family members. We have previous experience with some products, some vacuum cleaner that we like. And so we're tied to that vacuum cleaner brand. But more and more, it's coming down to this notion of ratings. So I look and I'll see a 5-star rating for some vacuum cleaner that's got 10,000 reviews. But it turns out that on social media and like in these AI shopping systems, these ratings that we see, 5-star ratings, can be bought and paid for. Cost a quarter. And there are these places on the internet we can go and you'll see interesting tidbits like, please leave a believable but skeptical 5-star review. Always 5 stars. And so you'll see, I didn't think that this little vacuum cleaner would work for me, but it changed my life. 5. And it costs a quarter. And so you can, rather than spending ad money to sponsor your vacuum cleaner, you would spend a few $100s to get 10,000 reviews and off you go. Now, Amazon and Walmart and Home Depot and all the companies, they have teams of people, buildings of people who are fighting this, what's called rating spam. But the same thing happens on Facebook and YouTube and TikTok and Reddit. The same thing over and over again. But rather than vacuum cleaners, we have news, opinions, information, videos, the perception of truth, the lens through which most people see the world is through these ranking systems. And they have the same problems. They can be bought, ratings can be paid for. It costs a dime, a quarter per rating, per upvote, per like, per favorite. And the AI system is then tricked into showing people not what is true or factual, but what is purchased. And so that's what I've been studying. Lots of experiments over the past several years, maybe 10 years ago, ran an experiment where I went into Facebook and Reddit, and I put in one single vote randomly every 2 minutes for about 6 months. And what we found is that the things that I liked were twice as likely to become trending. That was just one single vote, one like, one favorite. You can change what happens online. Now, I had ethics that prevented me from doing more, but there was the Guardian newspaper put out a thing for Brexit, and they spent $75, and this fake article, that's me up in the corner, Espen Lund, was online for days, the top ranked thing on Facebook and on Reddit that particular day. It cost $75. And so this idea of perception and quality is something that I'm deeply interested in and I'm curious about. And there are teams of people who are empirically investigating this type of issue. Now, moving on to the next kind of bits, we're kind of taking this idea of perception and quality and the lens through which you see the world and applying it now to this idea of war and peace. And so, as you may know, a couple of years ago, there was this full invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And so we were studying the same kind of dynamics in that space as a case study. And what we found is that there were tremendous amounts of what we call politically salient images, images that are online and they're edited, altered, somehow rephrased or repurposed to promote some viewpoint. And then we were wondering, let's take a look. Let's see, here's kind of from what we call Russian mail bloggers. Here's the typical rate of posts. And then in the month prior, not after, but prior to the invasion, we see something interesting happen. The number of posts spikes because the powers that be are promoting their opinions to try to get their population motivated and ready for war. And then, of course, this continues to happen. In fact, there was overall an 8,000% increase in the number of posts by Russian accounts in the 2 weeks before the invasion. And what's interesting here is that most of these, not most, but many of these posts were manipulated, altered images. We see here some examples. Of course, I'm an AI scientist, so I'm applying our AI tricks and tools to this social problem to understand what are people doing, what kind of manipulation and alterations are there. And we're finding here there's about a 5,000% increase in this particular case in the numbers of manipulated images before the invasion, again, to motivate, to get their population ready. And we also did there's a study that we did a little while ago about what were the nature of these posts, and it was going to these ideas of peace, which was, it was trying to paint the other as being less than human, to dehumanize, and to also to call into in-group solidarity. There's a handful of different things that I don't have time to get into. But this idea of using social media as the lens through which we see truth and fact and perception in the world is something that's troubling to me. That's something that I don't have a good sense on how to get past. But unfortunately, we have our next speakers to talk about some ways to get through that. Thank you.